Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and yesterday I did a video explaining why I think gear use at all, even the existence of gear, the discovery of gear by lifters, has reached a point to where it has become such a negative that the positives of it are outweighed by the negatives. But there's also another aspect of this to discuss, so let me put on my +5 out of weaponsmithing. Work on skilling up my crafting a little bit, and let's talk about this. And it's kind of interesting because, you know, I make those statements, and even like the one yesterday, I'll be the first to admit that, yes, quite frankly, the positives, the personal positives that people glean from these things, from using gear, has vastly been outweighed by the overall social negative and the marketing negative and everything else that goes with it within this community. But that doesn't mean that I don't support people's right to use these things if they are so inclined. If that's what they choose to do and they're a grown adult and they make an educated decision, I'm not going to go against that. And it's interesting, you know, because people have chimed in and said, well, Jason, you're sitting here talking about fitness and pro fitness. How can you take that stance? Because simply put, to me, it's no different than something like alcohol. You know what? There are people who can use alcohol and use alcohol regularly and be perfectly healthy, have no physical, social negatives, anything like that. All right, there's a difference between responsible use of something versus abuse. There's an enormous difference between use versus abuse. People who claim that there are perks to people using gear clearly don't know. They clearly have no experience. There are absolutely perks to using it. People wouldn't use this stuff in such large quantities, particularly a substance that isn't like physically addictive to anyone who immediately starts it. There can be a dependency on it, but it's not an addiction that doesn't get you high. All right, factor that in for a moment. Millions of people use these things who don't get high on them and that aren't addicted to them. That should tell you something. There are clearly perks as to why people use these things. And who are we to tell people, again, what to do with their own bodies unless it becomes an abuse issue? And that's the difference. Same thing with alcohol. You can abuse alcohol. And when people abuse alcohol, it destroys their bodies, destroys their health, can harm other people around them. It can turn them into violent, dangerous people that harm other people around them. It can cause vehicle accidents, including accidental deaths. I mean, alcohol, when abused, can be horrific. It can be horrific, and anabolics are no different. Gear is no different. Dealing with the same thing, really. Abuse of a substance. And people are like, well, what do you mean? It's like, because a lot of people who use these things responsibly, their health stays fine. What I mean is, and I don't just mean in the short term, I've known people over the course of my life who were 60 years old with 30 plus years of experience with these substances who were in perfect health. They're in perfect health. But the problem is that abuse has become so widespread that people don't know what conservative use even is. And it's interesting because there are tons of people on even YouTube and in the fitness world who claim natty who are clearly using abuse amounts. And if you guys want a comparison, I mean, here's a perfect comparison. Perfect comparison. We have a stated blast that I had proof of that someone sent me that he didn't deny. All right, and that gives you guys a real good idea of about the size that you can expect of someone who doesn't necessarily know how to train, but they abuse. They abuse. Remember Jerry Ward when he sent me that screenshot, or I sent that screenshot of him telling me what his cycle was when he and I were on speaking terms? He was claiming natty at the time. He was claiming that he had only previously been a gear user, but at the time he was on 2 grams, that's 2,000 milligrams of total gear, plus IGF-1, plus HGH. The only thing he claims was wrong in that was the IGF-1. And like I said, I'm willing to chalk that up to a typo on his part. He said, Jason must have changed it. I didn't, is what he typed. But I honestly believe it was a typo. I'm not even going to call the guy a liar. I legitimately think he made a typo. And that's why he thinks that's not what he said. And that's fine. I won't argue that what he says he used is what he used. But you throw that into the equation. Guys, that's abuse. That's abuse. That's way above what doctors would even prescribe of any of these substances for AIDS patients. All right? AIDS patients get at most 600 milligrams of Deca a week or 150 milligrams of Anadrol a day. That's like maximum dosage. We're talking 600 milligrams up to about a gram a week, depending on what they're given. That's for people with full-blown AIDS who have lost over 60, 70 pounds of body weight. Right? That's what they give them. And their health improves. Their health improves. Their blood work improves. Their immune system improves. They do better on this. They live longer. So that's your maximum therapeutic dose, even for people with a life-threatening, deadly, incurable disease. Okay? He's using over double that amount plus throwing other stuff in. I mean, that's abuse. And this is while claiming natty. So put that in perspective. Look at other people around on YouTube. Look at their overall size. Look at the overall leanness they have versus size who claim natty. And compare that to the abuse amounts that Jerry admitted to. Those are self-admitted while claiming natural. All right, there's your thing. How many guys you have out there? Like Mike Rashid, perfect example. You guys don't think he's abusing? Do you guys honestly think Mike Rashid was a casual gear user when he was 240 pounds lean? You guys really think that? You think he was just on 300-400 milligrams? No way. No way. I don't buy it. And we have a real good idea from his order from WFN, which he was financially affiliated with in multiple ways. No reason to think that wasn't real products shipped to him. We have a real good idea that he used pretty hefty amounts while telling everyone he was natty. So here's the thing. That's the problem we have. You know, people jump up and they'll claim to be natty. They'll be a bit smaller than some of these guys, but they'll use their natty status to sell products. How do you know they're not abusing? How do you even know what they use? And that's the problem we run into. That's why this has become such a negative in the community, because people can use it to market products. In fact, it's smart. It's good marketing. It works. I mean, let's be realistic here. There's a difference between ethical marketing and good marketing. Good marketing is anything that's going to work to your target audience. It's going to convince them to buy your products. It's damn good marketing. Damn good marketing. It works. Guys that just go on a little bit of gear, blow up a bit, or use something that really recompositions them, depending on what they're using, that's really good marketing. Most YouTubers are going to do that. Why wouldn't they? When they're looking at six-figure incomes off of their YouTube and selling programs and selling merchandise, why wouldn't they do that? Why wouldn't they go a little hard in the paint there? Makes you think they wouldn't. And people who honestly sit there and say, well, I think they're natty. Well, why do you think that? What is your basis for that? Your basis for that is what? That they're honest? Your basis for that is that they don't want to make more money? I mean, what is your basis for that? Someone you don't know personally, you don't know them as a person. Meeting someone at an expo is not knowing them as a person. Someone you're not personal friends with. You really are going to believe when you know that they might be making an extra 50 or 100 grand a year if they used gear when they reach a certain level of popularity on YouTube or whatever, or in selling products. You don't think that they're going to do that? What's your basis for their level of honesty when there's that much money involved? And when they see everyone else doing it, it's not like they're doing something rare or unusual. It's common. You know, and that's the interesting part. People need to understand different people use different amounts. They use very different amounts. And so it's always interesting. I'll get guys who are like, well, so-and-so's bigger or stronger than you and they don't use gear. I'm like, well, first of all, are you sure they're stronger than me? And how do you know they're bigger than me? Have you bet both of us in real life to compare us? You can't use a computer screen. You can't use photos to tell how big someone is. Are you sure they're bigger than me? Are you positive of this? Based on a screen? Because I can tell you right now, you can't. You don't know that. They might be. Not saying they aren't, but you don't know that. Furthermore, you don't know what they use or don't. You don't know what I use or don't use. Let's be honest here. You really don't know. And it's not really your business. But there's this assumption by certain people that because of whatever reason, because I'm pro-legalization, that I must be abusing massive quantities of this stuff. And that's just simply not true. In fact, I agree with people more like Ross Earthling. I know he's a big supplement guy, but he's got his own podcast. And we had a conversation in a private group years ago where he said that, quite frankly, he felt that anyone who hadn't earned like an IFBB Pro card or wasn't working towards something like that, that they were just a recreational user or amateur competitive bodybuilder, he didn't see the need for them to use more than about 400 milligrams a week. All right, total, everything. You know what? I don't disagree with Ross. I think that's pretty reasonable for people who just want the fringe benefits of these things and they want to be responsible adult users of these things. I think he's right. 400 or 500 milligrams is probably all they need if it's legit quality. Guys my age and up, if you're my age or older, if you're 40 years old or older, I honestly believe you have no business going over about 250 milligrams. I don't care what your combination is. You shouldn't be going over that. You've got to think about your health. And if you're going to do even that, I think you need to get periodic blood work. Make sure that you're healthy. Make sure that you're healthy. See where your cholesterol is. See where your blood pressure is. See where your red blood cell count is. Keep an eye on your prostate. All right? And that's the point. There's a difference between people who use versus people who abuse. Just like I have no problem with people drinking a glass of wine before bed every night. I have no problem with someone going out and having a few drinks every Friday night. That's not abusing alcohol. Someone who drinks 10 shots of Jack Daniels every night, or doesn't even know how many shots of Jack Daniels they drink every night, okay, that's abuse. It's the same with dealing with this gear stuff. It's the exact same thing, and there's an age variable involved. But there's a big difference between responsible use versus abuse. And the problem is that abuse has become so common and has become the norm. It's become the norm that people run around claiming natty and marketing themselves as natty and making money marketing themselves as natty who are probably in the abuse range. And it's so common for that to happen that people can run on non-abuse amounts and no one even calls them out, that most people will then think, as long as they're training somewhat hard and then they make really good gains, most people will look at them and think that they're natty, because you have so many abusers who claim to be natty that conservative users, they can claim natty all day long and 95% of people are going to believe them when they say it. And you know what? That creates one hell of a marketing environment for those people. It creates one hell of a marketing environment. But, at the end of the day, guys, there's a difference between saying, you know what, I am pro the legalization of these things for mature adults, people 21 and up, who can do these things responsibly. I don't even think they should be outlawed. I think they should be 100% legal. And actually, they really are with prescriptions. It's not that difficult to do this stuff legally, as long as you don't want to do abuse amounts. Doctors aren't going to prescribe you that. Even doctors who specialize in this. But the fact of the matter is, I don't see a problem. I don't think it's a health conflict for people to be responsible users. There's a difference between promoting that versus promoting abuse. And there's your disconnect, is abuse of a substance for whatever purpose you're consuming that substance or putting it into your body. Responsible use versus abuse. And it becomes abuse when people are taking quantities that are almost certain to harm their health or their environment in some way, meaning they're going to affect them psychologically in such a way that it's going to make them a danger to themselves and others. And that's the difference here, guys. And that's not a conflict, because we're talking about very different things. But the lines have been so blurred these days that people automatically assume that anyone who says that, okay, these things are probably okay if done in reasonable amounts, are probably not going to significantly harm your health, probably being the operative word, and significantly being the other operative word, versus saying, yeah, I think people should just be free to just abuse this stuff and use as much as they want. 2 grams, 3 grams, that's fine. It's all good. All right, there's an enormous difference. And that's your thing. There are plenty of natty bodybuilders out there, so-called natties, who are using abusive amounts of these things. And people just don't seem to grasp it or realize it, because they're just not familiar with that world. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.